Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm very pleased to have Emily Iland back as my guest today. Emily Iland is an award-winning author, advocate, filmmaker, researcher, and leader in the autism field. As a mother of a young man with autism spectrum disorder, she brings personal experience and insight to her professional roles. She has worked as an advocate and as an adjunct professor in the Department of Special Education at California State University, Northridge, where she received her master's degree. As a consultant, Emily provides program development, curriculum development, and training for parents, organizations, and government agencies about many topics related to autism spectrum disorder and related conditions. Main areas of focus include safety in police encounters, transition to adulthood, and parent education and advocacy. Emily has created 2 groundbreaking safety programs, Experience Autism and Be Safe the Movie. Experience Autism teaches police officers how to interact with people with autism or intellectual and developmental disabilities, and is the only evidence-based police training in the country. Be Safe the Movie uses video modeling to teach teens or adults with disabilities how to interact safely with the police. Emily and her son Tom have co-authored the award-winning book Come to Life, Your Guide to Self-Discovery, which is intended as an ideal tool for transition planning. Emily and Tom also offer engaging trainings on Come to Life, Experience Autism, and Be Safe, which are in demand across the country. Emily, welcome back, and thank you again so much for joining me today. We're going to be kind of recapping our discussion from last time about transition planning, and then we're also going to talk about making a choice between diploma or certificate track for your child, as well as the benefits of dual enrollment. So welcome back.
Well, thank you for having me, Gilda.
So to begin, would you like to do a brief recap of what we discussed last time, talk a little bit about transition, and then we can move on into the other areas?
Sure, no problem. So I'd like to begin with an acronym for LIFE that my son Tom came up with. L in LIFE stands for love and relationships. I is independent living. F is further education. And E is employment. And whether you have autism or not, as you become an adult, this is what life is all about: love and relationships, independent living, further education, and employment. But what we're learning, and many people are living, is the fact that the outcomes in these 4 areas are not very good for people on the autism spectrum. And we have some very good data from the Drexel Institute. It's called the National Autism Indicators Report. So in the area of love and relationships, we're finding that people on the spectrum are socially isolated after they leave high school. 24% were socially isolated, 39% didn't see friends in a year, and 32% had no community participation. So that's not what we want in the area of love and relationships for people on the spectrum.
No, absolutely not.
No, it isn't. In the area of independent living, only 2 out of 10 young people in their 20s had ever lived away from their parents, which is quite an opposite statistic compared to typically developing people.
That's true. Usually they can't wait to get away.
Exactly. And, some people say parents on the spectrum hover or helicopter, but I think we keep our kids home longer because they need to be there and they're not ready to go. It takes longer. So that's important to think about. So, many people on the spectrum have really great potential and do well in high school. And you think, there's a big cohort of people on the spectrum who are going to be successful in college. But it turns out that only 3.6 out of 10 even go to community college, much less finish it. So that is a very sobering statistic about further education. 3.6 out of 10 go to community college, university, a vocational school, or a tech school. So what are the rest of them doing? Well, maybe they're working, had worked in their early 20s. Unfortunately, of those who did, 79% were part-time, and the average wage was $8.08. So those are not those are not the indicators of a successful life by anybody's standard. And my point in bringing up these statistics is, even though they're sad and discouraging, is we've got to know that this is the reality we're dealing with so we can do something differently and get a different outcome.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, if you don't know what the reality is, it's hard to respond to it or even know where to begin to respond to it to make the necessary changes to address it.
Exactly. And, a lot of times it's parents who have to take the lead and work with educators and come together to collaborate to do things differently and shake it up, because we know the results of what we're doing now, and it's not what we want for our children or students with autism or anybody else. Sad, lonely, alone, poor. It's not.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, and nobody wants that. You're right. Absolutely, nobody wants that. So, is there anything else that you'd like to recap, or are you ready to move on to talk a little bit about education?
Well, I just want to mention two other points. That 51% of people of young adults on the spectrum were experiencing mental health issues in their young 20s that maybe they hadn't before. 51% experiencing anxiety, 53% with ADHD, 24% with depression. So that is really a call to action, that because it means that the young people are aware of the struggle they're facing and that they're not having the life they want for themselves.
Yeah, those numbers are huge. My goodness.
I know. They're really significant. And, we talked about a services cliff, that when people leave high school, they're not connected to resources. So there's a very big chance that those mental health issues are going unaddressed, which really complicates things. So, it sounds dire, and maybe you've lived that yourself, or somebody who has, and it does feel dire, So that's why we wanted, talk about some possible solutions.
Do you want to mention a couple of those solutions?
Sure, of course.
Okay, go ahead.
So my two top ones I'd like to discuss with you today are getting off the diploma track and doing dual enrollment with community college while you're still in high school.
Okay, so let's start by defining what the diploma track is, what the certificate track is, and when and how parents are asked to choose a particular track for their child.
Yes. I know this from personal experience and also from my work as an advocate for 300 families. So basically, when a student is in high school or going into high school, the team sits down and says, do you see your child going to college or not? So they ask parents that around ninth grade. And if you say, yes, I see my child going to college, they say, let's look at his academic record and see if he'd be okay doing the general education curriculum and going for a diploma. So they go into high school with the vision and view of getting a diploma, which is fine. And then some people, the parents will say, no, I don't see my student going to college. And then that person gets a more functional curriculum and is put on a certificate track. And the certificate students can stay in special ed till 22 to give them more time to become more functional and more, able to be successful in the big areas of life. So again, when the student is around 17, getting close to the age for graduation, they come back and say, are you diploma track or certificate track? And if you say diploma track, then the student will be exited from special education and their school plan as soon as they have enough credits to graduate. And if you say certificate, the person will not get a diploma. They'll get a certificate of completion and continue some kind of a transition plan until their 22nd birthday in most states. So it's an either-or system at the moment, and I think that's what the problem is. It shouldn't be an either-or system. The system, special education law says that you can have an individualized program. So by only offering two options, that's not individualized, because some people need a combination. And I would say pretty much everybody on the spectrum needs a combination of academic and functional, practical life skills.
Absolutely,
and right now,
I agree with you.
Yeah, right? And right now, students who are on the diploma track are so busy getting their credits that they don't have time for independent living skills, organizational skills, self-advocacy training, job development skills. They're not getting that. They're only getting an academic focus or a very limited additional instruction. So I think that's one of the reasons so many people are not doing well when they leave school if they're on the diploma track, is because they didn't get what they needed when they were still in high school.
Yeah, I agree. That's a huge chunk that's missing from the development aspect of a young person who is who's on the spectrum or has special needs and doesn't develop in those ways in a neurotypical fashion, and they need that extra help. They need that extra support. Exactly. And it's not, like you say, it's not just about either or. It's about approaching it from a holistic standpoint and dealing with all of the needed elements, all of the different puzzle pieces that are necessary to complete the picture. And unfortunately, our system is just not doing a good job of that.
And it's because of the either or. I think of like train tracks, and then there's a junction, and one train goes to the left and one goes to the right, and they never meet again, where it really can be blended, especially if we communicate the reasons why an either or is not right for a particular person, and they need a blended program. Now, the good news is some places are figuring this out and creating their own transition programs and doing things like 5-year high school, or not forcing people out the door once you have enough credits to graduate. Because a diploma is an exit document which ends all entitlement to services in special education. And when I first learned that as a parent, I was in total shock. I had no idea that, you're out the door, you're done if you take a diploma, whether or not, you're really ready to go and all your needs have been addressed.
I think a lot of parents are concerned from that perspective because I think they're under the misconception that if a student doesn't take a diploma and they end up with a certificate, that perhaps that will prohibit them from going on to higher education, and that is not the case, correct?
You're right about that. So you don't need a diploma from high school to get into a university if you go through a community college transfer program, which means that the community colleges mentor you and put you through a rigorous program to prepare you for university, and then transfer you into a university as a junior to finish your last final years, your junior and senior year. So you can do that without a diploma. But I'm not suggesting not to take the diploma. I'm suggesting not to be on the diploma track. Different story. My idea is expand the student's program to address real paid work experience during high school and other predictors of success that they're missing out on. Specific social skills instructions for independent living and being an adult. A lot of kids on the spectrum who are on the diploma track now, they haven't had services from a speech pathologist in 10 years because they can talk. But that doesn't mean they know how to talk to people in adult environments and meet the expectations of the adult world, like how to speak to a professor and how not to correct the professor, or to not insult your boss, or not make comments about your coworkers, and all this social nuance of the adult world that they need to be prepared for and aren't. So that's my idea, is to augment the diploma with the needed services and then award the diploma.
Yeah, don't push them out when they're 18 just because they want to work for a diploma. Give them that extra time to get their diploma and work on all of these other skills, independent living skills, social skills, and so forth. And if they get their diploma at 20 or 21 or 22, so be it.
Exactly.
That's fine.
However, there's a few reasons that this doesn't happen. The first one is people aren't used to doing it that way, and they don't know even how to handle it. So they're like, what, do we keep them here on the high school campus? Where do we send them over to the community college? What do we do? And more and more districts are figuring out what to do, and that can be figured out, and that's what an individualized education plan means, that you figure it out for this student. And people are pretty quick to realize, well, it's not just the student. What else should we be doing for other people too? And that's how programs get started. But another obstacle is the student's expectation theirself. I have to walk at graduation. I have to be like my peers. There's nothing wrong. I should just go off to college. I'm ready. And so that lack of self-awareness and possibly a lack of self-acceptance is one of the obstacles that the student resists additional instruction or time. So that's a big family conversation, and it's something that families can work on leading up to this decision. The fact that it's okay to need help, that it's okay to be on your own timeline for development, that it's okay to have your own path and plan that doesn't have to match everyone else. And we went through this with my son Tom, but he understood why he was going to not take his diploma and continue working on his own goals for transition. And he was allowed to walk at the ceremony, participate in every other way, but he was given an empty folder when they passed out the diplomas, and it was kept in a safe place, until it was awarded to him later, while he continued to work on his goals. So
when did he get his diploma?
When he was 22. He continued to have services from the school district while he was enrolled in the community college, because they had not addressed really important things that were going to prevent him from having a successful adult life. The district took responsibility and was willing to work with him at the community college level. So he continued to get academic tutoring, social skills training, life skills training, and work experience while he was at the community college, and it made all the difference in the world. It made all the difference in the world to his success.
So he received his college degree without ever actually having gotten a high school diploma. Is that correct?
No, he kind of got his AA degree and his high school diploma awarded simultaneously, and then he went on. Then he went on to get a Bachelor of Science. So he has them all, but it was just the fact that it was not awarded until his transition plan was completed.
Very good. So that he was allowed to be able to continue with those services, as you mentioned, while he was going to the community college.
Yes.
He's certainly very, very fortunate to have had that opportunity because, as you mentioned earlier, most parents are led to believe it's an either-or situation, and they don't realize and they don't fight for and push for having other options made available to their children.
Yes.
And that's just a sad state of affairs, I think.
It is a lot to do with what parents don't know, and the fact that most people do things the way they're typically done and don't make a case for doing it differently. But remember that everything is based on needs. And your student who could get a diploma has additional needs besides academics, and it's not doing them a favor to rush them out the door or, to overlook their areas where they need to grow, assuming, oh, they're so smart, they're doing great, they're thriving in high school. But it's just like when they went from elementary school to junior high. It's a whole new world, and you might have looked good in 6th grade, but 7th grade was not so smooth. So it's the same thing, to not be so enchanted by their success in high school that you lose sight of the fact that they're truly not prepared for life. And so that brings to the point of good assessment. And one of the risks I have seen for students on a diploma track is that they're not assessed in all areas of needs to make their transition plan. They're only looked at in academics, and they're not doing a holistic assessment of their social skills. their organizational skills, their self-advocacy skills, and the other types of things that are critical for success as adults. And if you have a good assessment, right, if the assessment will lead to identifying the needs, and once you have needs, you have goals. Once you have goals, you get services, but you can't get services unless you have good assessment to identify the needs. So that's another area for parents to advocate. And one of the components of every assessment is parent input. So the parent saying, my son doesn't take a shower unless I tell him he stinks, he doesn't understand hygiene. Or my son, stares at women in the grocery store and it makes them uncomfortable. The parents have to report what it is that needs to be worked on while the student is still in school. And then the professionals can take it from there, and there's all sorts of assessments that can be done to determine the readiness skills for adult life and work on them.
Very good advice, and something that I think every parent should definitely take to heart and focus on while the child, as you say, is still in school and while they still have the majority of these services available to them.
That's right.
So that kind of leads us into the area of dual enrollment. Mm-hmm. Talk about that a little bit, about going to high school but then also being enrolled at the community college simultaneously.
Sure, no problem. Before I do that, I want to point out one more thing, parents, one more PowerPoint that parents have, which is...
Yes, please.
It's in preparing for the transition IEP, the parent is asked 3 questions. Do you see your child going to higher education? If you say yes, then the plan goes in one direction. And if you say no, the plan goes in another. They ask you, will your child live independently? And if you say yes, the child will be prepared to live independently. And if you say no, he's staying home with me, then none of that independent living skills will be put into place. And finally, they ask, will your child work? And if you say yes, they will get work programs and employment skill development. And if you say no, then they won't. So those 3 questions are asked in creating the vision for a transition plan. And what you need to do is say, yes, my child will live alone. It might not be right away, but the vision is that, or not alone, but with, not necessarily with you your whole life, their whole life.
As independently as possible.
Yes. So you want to say yes, because that opens the door to all that support and teaching to develop those skills to live as independently as possible. You want to say yes to higher education because it could look like going to a class or being part of a program or going to a college or university. You want to say yes to work because getting employment skills during high school is the number one predictor of success for getting a job as an adult. Now, doesn't that make sense?
Absolutely, yeah.
But people on the diploma track don't get work experience during high school. People on the certificate course do. And there's a study by Taylor and Seltzer that says that if you have autism and no intellectual disability, you're 3 times more likely to be unemployed than someone with autism with intellectual disability. Now, isn't that counterintuitive? Wouldn't you think that people who have normal or gifted intelligence would be employed and people who, have intellectual disability wouldn't?
Yes. Now why?
Well,
why is that true?
My theory is that people with intellectual disability get into work programs during high school in their transition program and are supported to find work that works for them. Whereas people on the diploma track don't get the work experience and don't get the work skills, and even though they have the content knowledge or the potential to work, they can't get and keep a job because they haven't been prepared to do so. That's my theory. I would like to test it, but I think we are testing it right now by the way we're doing things.
Yeah, I think you're onto something. You're definitely onto something there.
Yeah. That's a shocking statistic.
It really is.
Yeah.
That
brings
us
back
very
to
sad.
community college and dual enrollment, and the value of that is incredible. So what it is that students in every state in the country can go to high school and at the same time can attend community college for free. And I highly, highly recommend it for every student with an IEP. And the reason is that I would suggest it for age like 15 and up to start taking one class at the community college. And even if it's a winter session, 6-week course, or a summer session, but there are many, many benefits of getting involved in community college while you're still in high school. The first one is that you have your adult with you who can go over there and help you navigate the system, because it's absolutely daunting if you don't know what a purser is, or that you have to buy books for every subject yourself, or whatever it is. You need your adults with you to orient you to navigating college and getting comfortable with being there. Secondly, it gives you a chance to find out where you need more skill development, what's hard about being there. The third thing, it gives the student a taste of college life, so in case they didn't think they wanted it, they can find out they do, and in case they thought they wanted it, they can find out it's a little harder than they thought.
Mm-hmm.
A fourth benefit is that they get credits for that count both for high school and college. So say someone has a foreign language requirement and it's too difficult for them in high school, they can take sign language at the community college and it will count for their high school language requirement, and will also count, they'll get high school credit on college credit on their transcript as well. And that goes for any course they take. My son Tom took higher level mathematics at the community college when he was in high school because he could, that was his thing. And so he had quite a few math credits by the time he left school. So those
That's
are some
fantastic.
of the benefits. Yeah, those are some of the benefits.
I had no idea that that community college was free if you were in high school and doing dual enrollment. That's great to know.
Now, that's how it was, and that's how it is in most places, but you would have to find out from the guidance counselors. They're the ones who know all the secrets. But, I think it's important for parents to also meet with guidance counselors and get these kind of insider track stuff that you don't know. We were so fortunate to have the director of special ed, who was Tom's mentor, who knew all these things and made sure that Tom got them. But that was a unique situation, and we were very, very fortunate. But I learned a lot along the way because he was my mentor too, and so I learned about dual enrollment. And like I mentioned before, another feature of dual enrollment is, you can get onto one of those tracks called a transfer program track, where eventually you can go to a university as a junior. So you can find out what the requirements are for that and how long it would take you to complete it, and just give you a much better sense if you get involved with the whole system and process while you're still in school and you have your people with you. Because when you're over 18 and you go to community college, nobody wants to see your mama coming with you, and
that's for sure.
Right? And so you want your mama with you when you're 15, that's fine, come on in, and it's normal, especially for intersession, which means that January month where they have small courses and you could enroll together with your student, to do something fun like the history of film or pottery or weightlifting or ballet, whatever it is you want to just do something fun. Don't make it hard the first time. Make it about the person's talent area or special interest, to get their feet wet in a very non-threatening way.
Yeah, and so that sounds like a wonderful thing to do while the child is actually in high school. And so why can community college after high school be a great option for students who are on the spectrum?
Well, it helps students get a lot of credits out of the way at their own pace. Oh, yeah, I forgot one important thing. I'll say that in a minute. So the university pace is intense, and you're expected to take a bunch of credits, at least 12 units, and there's a lot of work attached to that, and it's very fast-paced, and there's no special education in higher education. So I actually teach at Cal State Northridge, and the students with autism in my classes have to perform the same academic standard as everybody else. and all I can do is accommodate their needs, but I cannot modify the content for them. Otherwise, they don't get the same degree as everyone else. And that, you know what I mean? A degree has to represent a particular standard of academic excellence.
Right. Now, so at a four-year university, there's a minimum progress requirement. So every semester or quarter that they're enrolled, they have to have certain minimum number of credits in order to progress, but that's not true at the community colleges, right?
Right. You can take as few as you need, and I think having a light load to accommodate, to get yourself used to being in college and working with professors and all the different changes, having a light load is one of the smartest things you can do versus having all the pressure of paying your tuition and needing to take 12 credits to get value for your money, versus community college is far less expensive, and it's great to just go slow. There's a course at the community college called personal development. There's all kinds of things to do that would help the person adjust and progress at their own rate without feeling so much pressure. And one of the things we always said at our house was one change at a time. So Tom stayed living at home while he went to community college because the change was going from high school to a college setting. But we didn't also move him physically to a new environment at the same time because a person can only take so much change. But I did want to go back to...
Neurotypical people can only take so much change.
Exactly. When we're talking about people who often feel more stress and anxiety, managing the anxiety by taking things in smaller chunks at a slower pace can be a really great idea. The other piece I forgot about dual enrollment that really matters is the fact that once you're enrolled in a community college, you can enroll in the Center for Students with Disabilities. And from that day forward, you get priority enrollment in the college every semester after that. And that means that you get to sign up before sign up opens to the general public. That means you can get the courses you need with the professors you need at the time you need, and then other people get to enroll. And this can be very, very important for people on the spectrum who have to know how their body clock works, that an 8 a.m. class just won't work for them, or that they need a professor who is a patient person. And you know what I mean? Because some professors really are not patient. I know this because I've met them. But
haven't we all?
Getting the right fit for an instructor, it's how good that is for your student in high school to have the right instructor. So it's as important in college. And by having priority registration, you can get a better fit. You can work for the fit. And the fit is sometimes what makes or breaks our population.
Yeah, and that Center for Students with Disabilities goes by a different moniker at different colleges. Sometimes it's referred to with the acronym the DSPS office, and I forget what that stands for. But basically, it's the office on campus that is specifically for students with disabilities and special needs. They are there to service them, whatever name it happens to go by on that particular campus.
DSPS stands for Disabled Students Programs and Services. That's what it stands for.
There we go. Thank you.
Basically, they're the gatekeepers. You have to come in. You have to be found eligible. You have to bring certain paperwork, very extensive paperwork. Your last evaluation, your formal diagnosis. Then they go through a process of determining what kind of accommodations you'll need, and then they are the ones who inform the professors or give you the paperwork to inform the professors what you need. They do some tutoring services and things like that, but really they're just there to make sure you get your accommodations, and one of the accommodations they can get you is that priority enrollment. So it's a great place to start. Yes.
Yeah, well worth it. Yeah. And especially some of the other accommodations that you say they can make available, things like extra time for tests, being able to test in quiet environments, special waivers. There's various kinds of things that's available, and a lot of times all they ask for is the student's last IEP. the last copy of the IEP, and so you provide that to them as evidence of the qualifying condition, whatever it happens to be, and the exit IEP from high school, and there you go.
So each office and each location runs independently. So when I recently went with a student to get enrolled, and they needed his doctor's diagnosis paper. They didn't
really?
just accept the last IEP. So they each have their own policies and customs. So here's the trick: go over there when your kid's 15 and wants to take bowling or in the summer.
There you go.
Get them enrolled in Disabled Student Services. Bring all the paperwork. But another thing there, and then you're done. It's done. You don't have to reapply. So that's really an advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've covered some wonderful topics here, and you've given some amazing information. Is there anything else that you would like to add, something that I haven't asked that you think it's important to mention, anything else that you want to go over, and some of the most important things for people who are listening to this podcast to take away when they finish?
Yes. Well, there's 5 predictors of success for students with disabilities. And these 5 factors predict whether or not they're going to work. And whether someone goes to college and goes to work or goes straight to work, really having a way to make a living is the goal. So one of the factors that predicts success is family involvement. And when the family just has the vision of the person working or going on to higher education, the outcome is that the person works or goes on to higher education. So that family voice of the vision for a positive life for their child, wherever they are on the spectrum, is a predictor of success. Another one is career preparation and work experience. And the Department of Rehabilitation is now giving more funding so that people in high school can work paid jobs and get job training while they're in high school, and that should be something that everybody on the spectrum does. It is one of the greatest predictors for success. Another one are school-based preparatory activities so that everybody's getting academic and non-academic courses. So, again, that's a predictor, but we know that people on the diploma track aren't getting those non-academic courses, right? So that's a problem.
Right, yeah.
The next factor is called youth development and leadership. And here's what it says for that predictor. Youth acquire the skills, behaviors, and attitudes that enable them to learn and grow in self-knowledge, social interaction, and physical and emotional health. Now, what school program do you know that's working on youth development for those factors?
None.
Precisely. So this is where parents can take the lead and say, youth development is a predictor of success, one of 5 pieces of the puzzle that needs to be there. And that's why Tom and I wrote the book called Come to Life, Your Guide to Self-Discovery, where we do youth development, where we help young people discover the important things about themselves that need to be taken into account for planning for their future. Because what we're doing now is we're bringing youth to the table and saying, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? Where do you want to live your life? What are you going to do for fun? And when they say, I don't know, we make the plan anyway. So the plan is not authentic because we're basing it on our best guesses about what might work out for them. But our best guess isn't good enough. We really need that process of youth development that includes them having a say in their future, a voice about their preferences and their needs, so that the plan is more authentic. So that's youth development. And we have lots of activities and information for that in our book, Come to Life. And the last thing that predicts success are called connecting activities. And what this means is that while the student is still in high school, that the transition team connects that student to the supports they're going to need for the next phase of their life. So if they need an aid 100% of the time in high school, they have to figure out, well, how are we going to make that happen for their life the day after the bus stops coming? what we're doing now is having a services cliff where people are left without the services they need, and that's why they're kind of stuck on the couch for a few years, because the connecting activities didn't happen, the agencies didn't collaborate, the parents don't know who to call, but that is all part of the IEP process for transition that should be figured out before someone walks away from high school for the last time.
Yeah, absolutely. Like we were saying earlier, it's all pieces of the puzzle that come together to make the full picture. And if one or more of those pieces are missing, then you stand the danger, the possibility of having that young person fall between the cracks, and end up, as you say, on the sofa for 3 years. And that's certainly not a life we want for anybody.
Right. So I hope these were useful tips. I'm actually planning to write a second volume of Come to Life where I share these kinds of ideas. The first volume of Come to Life is Tom talking to his peers, and the second would be me talking to my peers who are parents and educators to share these ideas and explore them further and offer the kind of resources parents are looking for. I was the president of the Autism Society of LA when Tom was going through transition, and I felt so in the dark. And I thought, well, if I'm in the dark and feel lost, and I'm running this organization, what about the other parents? How are they feeling right now? And there is a big information gap for parents at this phase.
I agree. And those sound like a pair of wonderful resources. The one book that already exists that Tom did, and then the one that's coming that you're going to do, I think are probably two very good books to be on anybody's shelf who is in this situation or has a young person or a loved one with disabilities or special needs. So yes. Kudos.
Well,
I'm really glad to hear that you guys are doing that.
We appreciate that. And, it's exciting. It's exciting work because there's so much potential, and it feels so great to have somebody realize their potential and find their way in the world. That's what we all want for our own children, and what we need to want for all of our children as a group, and, push the system a little bit to function differently, because that's what our students need.
I agree. So then please tell us, how can our listeners reach you if they have questions or they want to know more?
Well, my last name is Iland, but it's spelled I-L-A-N-D. So my website is emilyiland.com, and my email is emilyiland@gmail.com. So you'll be able to find me as long as you spell Iland, I-L-A-N-D.
Okay, and I'll spell the whole thing out because sometimes people spell Emily differently, but you spell it EMILYILAND, and that is emilyiland.com and emilyiland@gmail.com.
That's right.
Okay, great. Well, thank you again so much, Emily, for your time and the incredible information that you've shared today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Anytime, Gilda. You're doing a great service to the community by offering these podcasts, and I hope people take advantage of the wealth of information you're sharing.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that, and I do hope that you'll be back again very soon.
My pleasure.
I also want to thank our listeners for spending a part of their day with us. I'm Gilda Evans, reminding you to take care of yourself and that special person in your life.